What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Burgundy Boss here with another episode of the Burgundy Boss podcast. We are in here today. We are going to preview the Washington football team at Philadelphia Eagles. And boy, am I excited for this one. This one is basically both teams' seasons are on the line in this one. Essentially, whoever loses is out of the playoffs. It's going to take a lot for whoever loses to even make that 7 seed. So let's jump right into it. Washington at Philly. Keys to the game. Philly has the number one rushing offense in the NFL. That's huge. That has been their bread and butter since they've kind of gotten on track after they started pretty far off track to begin the season. We got to limit all aspects of Philly's rushing attack. That's my key for Philly. We got to limit their rushing. That's Jalen Hurts. That's Miles Sanders. That's Kenneth Gainwell. That's Jordan Howard. That is everybody. Even Jalen Reagor, when they use him as a gadget guy. That's the whole rushing attack. We've got to limit that. Washington is giving up the second fewest. So they're number 2 in rush defense as far as yards go. Awesome. Washington is 5th in rushing touchdowns allowed. So they're not letting guys in the end zone, at least not running the ball. Passing, that's a different story. So let's get into a breakdown. The Eagles are the worst passing offense in the NFL, point blank, period. Kind of in flip to that, Washington has one of the worst pass defenses. I mean, they're 31st in yards allowed. So kind of interesting. It's kind of weakness on weakness and strength on strength in this game. Washington middle of the pack when it comes to running the ball on offense. Towards the end of the league, when it comes to rushing touchdowns, they're ranked 28th. The Eagles, on the other hand, they are ranked 6th in pass yards allowed and 8th in rush yards allowed. So they've got a pretty stout defense. Kind of middle of the pack when it comes to touchdowns. They're ranked 19th in both rushing touchdowns that they give up and passing touchdowns that they give up. The Eagles in this one are favored by 6.5 at home at the Link. I hate Lincoln Financial Field. I hate it with a passion. I'm glad they flew in those seats, man. I'm so glad they flew in those seats for this game. Yeah, do them just like Dallas did us. And then we're going to take those same seats and we're going to fly them down to Dallas, and then we're going to beat Dallas on Sunday night. But before I get ahead of myself, get too riled up, let's get into the next portion of this. I want to talk about a couple guys in this game, right? Let's talk about some injuries. And I'm going to pull it up here so that we can look at injuries for this game. And really, as far as injuries, Philly is healthy. Philly is coming off a bye. They are as healthy as they're going to be. Jalen Hurts has been banged up. And guess what? He got 2 days of extra health to get that ankle right. So he's good to go. Their injury slate is completely clean. We are going to be without Curtis Samuel. We are going to be without J.D. McKissick. Terry McLaurin has cleared concussion protocol, contrary to what the screen says right now. And Daniel Wise is also good to go. So on the injury front, that's that. We're going to be without Curtis Samuel and no J.D. McKissick. Cool. So then let's go to the COVID list. I know you can't see it. Philly's COVID list, they have 2 guys that were recently added. Andre Dillard, and who's a backup tackle for them. And then one of their starting guards and rookie Landon Dickerson, who has been playing really well in accordance to all Philly fans that I've talked to. This is our COVID list, on the other hand, and we do have some key contributors. Now, there's a couple guys on this list that, since this list was made, have been released from COVID protocol. I know Tim Settle is ready to go. I know Matt Ioannidis is ready to go. I know they're awaiting on tests for Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen. They're hoping to have one of those guys play tonight. If not, Garrett Gilbert is ready to go, locked in. I mean, as far as other, like, you've got core special teamer Troy Apke on here. Cornelius Lucas has been playing tackle, but now that Sam Cosmi's back, he probably wouldn't be starting. Samus Reyes, Tamarick Hemingway, we are battled and bruised up at the tight end position. Some other special teamers, David Mayo's in there. But the other big one, there's two other big ones on this list, and it's Cameron Curl, who's possibly the best defender on this team after Jonathan Allen. And the other one is Brandon Sheriff. That's going to hurt our run game tonight, not having Brandon Sheriff. But we're hoping, Wes Schweitzer or somebody can step in and fill that role. So that's the injury front. That's the COVID front. Now we're going to exit. And there's a couple guys I want to talk about in this game, okay? For Philly, these are guys that if they win, these are going to be the two guys that are the reasons that they win. So I've got two guys for Philly on offense and defense and an honorable mention. And then the same thing for Washington, two offense, two defense, and an honorable mention. For Philly, it's Jalen Hurts. He's back. And the one thing that has killed Washington forever is running quarterbacks. And, I mean, Daniel Jones even earlier in this year was killing us running with his legs. If it wasn't for a holding call, we would have gave up a touchdown. So running quarterbacks scare me, especially when it comes to this defense. Now, the other guy I've got on that list is Dallas Goedert, because what kills us more after running quarterbacks? The tight end. And not having Cam Curl out there, that's going to be a big loss because he has been locking down tight ends and running backs that we've struggled against. He's done a heck of a job. He's got the size, the athleticism. He locked down Christian McCaffrey earlier this year. But we have some other guys that can cover. Cole Holcomb, he's been doing a pretty good job. He's been covering some tight ends this year, so it doesn't scare me too much. But those are the guys we got to watch out for. Defensively for Philly, it's the big boys up the middle. It's Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. And if you don't know who Javon Hargrave is, you need to learn because he is playing the best ball he's played in his entire career right now for Philly. He's got 7.5 sacks on the year. Remember that number. We will come back to that number. Fletcher Cox is still Fletcher Cox. And he will wreck our game, especially since we have no Brandon Sheriff out there. Look for Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave to attempt to ruin our night, regardless of who plays quarterback for us. And the honorable mention for Philly I wrote in was Darius Slay, because he's been playing big-time ball this year. He's been locking guys down. Now, you can argue that some of the schedule for Philly hasn't been the greatest. I don't care. Darius Slay is still a top 10 corner in the league, I believe. So we got to watch out for him. He's my honorable mention. Now to flip over on the other side and for Washington. And these are the five guys that if Washington is going to win, this is who we need to step up. Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin on offense. And notice I mentioned Terry McLaurin. I also mentioned Darius Slay as an honorable mention for Philly. I think if Terry McLaurin wins that matchup, we should win this game. But if Darius Slay takes care of business and locks him down, and we don't have a quarterback that can get the ball to Terry, we might be in some real trouble. Unless Antonio Gibson can get rolling and, he can really lack on the fumble front. He can get that taken care of. Maybe they use Jarrett Patterson to take some of that pressure off of him. But look for a big night from Antonio Gibson if we're going to win this game. And defensively for Washington, It's pretty much the same thing as it was for Philly. It's the big boys up front. It's Deron Payne. It's Jonathan Allen. Those are my two defenders that we need to step up in this one. And if we're going to win, those two guys are going to have big nights because they're going to be stopping the run, collapsing the pocket. It's going to have to come from them. And speaking of collapse in the pocket, I wrote down my honorable mention as the COVID super spreader himself, Montez Sweat, because he is back. And I don't know if you guys remember the type of athlete that he is. He runs a 4.4. I mean, the dude is a super athlete. And if anybody can help chase down Jalen Hurts tonight, it's going to be Montez Sweat. It's going to be his job to contain him and to flush him out and to sack him. Point blank. I need like 2 sacks out of Montez Sweat tonight, 2 sacks out of Deron Payne, and 2 sacks out of Jonathan Allen, and I think we're going to be feeling great. And next part. I've got some sleepers for us to watch out for in this one. And on the Philly side, I have one for offense, one for defense. Philly sleeper is Quez Watkins, who got added to the COVID list and has just been pulled off the COVID list today. And he's a speed demon. He's one of those height, weight, speed freaks, and he'll burn you if you give him the opportunity to. And guess what? We've given guys the opportunity to burn us this year. Think of like a Cordero Patterson this year. He's kind of similar size. He's definitely not as physical and as big as Cordero Patterson, but he'll burn you right over the top, just like Cordero Patterson is. Bobby McCain, know your job. That's all I'm going to say. Defensively, Philly's got a Sweat that we need to watch out for. Josh Sweat. He's the key, and he is second on the Eagles in sacks this year. If we're going to win, we're going to have to limit him getting the pass rush because he can do it. For Washington, I got a couple sleepers. Offensively, John Bates. I think John Bates, Ricky Seals-Jones is kind of banged up right now. He may not even play, but if he doesn't, we're going to need a big night out of John Bates. And John Bates has proven time and time again he can block, he can catch, he can run deep routes, short routes. He could be a safety valve for a quarterback. So I'm looking for a big night for John Bates offensively if we're going to get this thing going. And defensively for us, James Smith-Williams. There's going to be somebody opposite of Montez Sweat that if Jalen Hurts is trying to run away from Montez Sweat, he's going to go to that other side. And it's going to be J.S. Dub's job to be able to shut that down and not let him outside. So if you're a Philly fan, watch out for James Smith-Williams tonight because he will be there. And he has proven that he's not afraid to sack the quarterback. It was just a couple weeks ago he met the quarterback with Jonathan Allen and they sandwiched the quarterback for a couple of sacks. So he's a dude. And with that being said, I want to go up here and we're going to take a look at the stats for this year. And I was looking at this, and it's kind of crazy how similar Washington and Philly are. They've got their leading sack artist is Javon Hargrave. I told you about Javon Hargrave. He's going to come up the middle. He's having a career year. He's got 7.5 sacks on the year, as you can see. Right there, boom, Josh Sweat, number 2 with 5. Then they got a couple guys with 2 and 1. Not really anybody you should worry about. Maybe Derek Barnett comes in and gets a sack or something. But the one number on this thing that was a little bit shocking to me is that Fletcher Cox only has 1 sack on the year. I don't know. Philly fans, has Fletcher Cox been banged up? Has he missed some games? Because he's played in all 13. So I thought that was a pretty interesting little tidbit of information. And on the flip side, Washington, Jonathan Allen, 7.5 sacks, which matches Hargrave. Then you've got Montez Sweat, which matches Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat had 5, I know, but it's very close. And then we have a few more guys that have, over 2. because Philly's was Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, and then a few guys with 2, and then everybody else with 1. Washington's got quite a few different guys who have gotten sacks, but it's 7.5, 4. Deron Payne's got 3.5. Collins has 3. It's a trickle down. It's not so much of a jump from 7.5, 5, 2 as Philly. So we've got more guys that can do it. They don't do it as often though. So watch out for that as well. And for the last part, let's talk about my prediction for this one. Man, this was a hard one for me to predict. I looked at all the numbers. Philly's favored by 6 and a hook. They got the over-under at 42 points. So they think it's going to be 24-17 Philly. Vegas does. Well, I think it'll be about flipped. In this one, I'm going to take Washington to pull this one off. I think there's a lot that's going on here. There's a lot of, people doubting Washington because of all the COVID results. I think Philly is kind of on their high horse. We've got the number 1 offensive rushing attack in football. They're just getting Jalen Hurts back, so maybe it'll take some time for them to get reacclimated. But my prediction is 21-17 Washington in this one. I think Antonio Gibson has a big night. Terry catches a touchdown. And I think Landon Collins has a defensive touchdown in this one. So, anyways, this is going to do it for me, Burgundy Boss, here on another episode of the Burgundy Boss podcast. If you've made it this far, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go find me on Twitter, listen to the podcast on Apple Podcast and Spotify.